Welcome to another video. This video we'll discuss using a tool called Ventoy as a multi-OS boot tool with multiple OS installation files or diagnostic tools on one USB key and be able to install anything you need to install from the one USB key. As you see, I have many different versions of OSs. I have a few tools. It just allows me to boot up into the USB key onto a computer. In this case, I'm showing it from a virtual machine, but if I were to take a USB key and plug it into any physical machine, it would boot up just like this. So without further ado, let's discuss on how we would get this tool. So you go to ventoy.net or just Google Ventoy and you find it. You click on Windows Zip. It will take you to another page. I'll close this one. Take another page, you scroll down, you download the Windows Zip tool. It will then download it. And then once you download it, take it, drag it on your desktop, and then you can unzip it or extract it. I use 7-zip, so you can extract it here, there, and it's going to put folder elsewhere, which is here. So I'm going to delete that because I've already done it. So let's delete that, and we'll get rid of this. And now we have a tool here, Ventoy. So let's look on the side here. I have a tool, one called Ventoy H. This is a test I'm going to do, show you how to actually create the Ventoy drive. So once you open up this folder, you run Ventoy Disk, you'll get a prompt for user access control because Windows wants to make sure you know you're opening a program that is doing additional changes to your system. So it just warns you that there's something going to run. So once you say yes, you choose the tool, you choose the drive. Now remember we said we wanted the H drive. The H drive is a 256 gigabyte USB stick, USB key. I want to choose that disk. I've already formatted it once already. I'm going to do it again. If you already have it running and you want to run an update, you would just click update and it would update the current files that are on there. As you see, it's the same version. I'm just going to reinstall on the H drive. Now it's going to format the drive and lose all the data. I'm fine with that. And this is, are you sure? It's a double check. And now it will format the drive. You see H disappear and H will come back. That's it. So at that point, you can just close Ventoy and go to H. Now H sits there with nothing on it. So what you can do is the first thing to do is copy your Ventoy there. So this way you always have a copy with you. So I usually do that. Now what you want to do is you want to put any tools you might want. So I have my tools stored on another Ventoy disk. I'll show you. So let's say I want to use Ultimate Boot CD. I'm just going to drag it, copy it over to Ventoy H, and you'll see it start copying. And that ISO file is basically, it's an ISO right here. It's a boot disk, a CD, so to speak, but an image, a software image of a CD or DVD. So the idea of getting ISOs, let's say you want to have a emergency install kit for Windows 10. So you just choose the Windows 10 disk, let's say 20HT, 20H2, you can copy it over again, just drag and drop it in. Now this takes a while to copy, so I'm just going to show you the end result of it. So I'm going to boot up the computer in one of these other pre-existing disks. So this may fail because I'm going to drop it, but I will just show you what it does. So once you drag and drop all your OSs in here, you could do what I did. You could create Linux, put your Linux in here, your tools, put your tools. You could put VMware tools, VirtualBox tools. You can also do Windows Desktop. So all the OSs from 7, 8, 10, XP, and soon to be 11 on there. In folders if you want. If you put them in folders, it will still work. So now that I've built my tools, so let's say the desktop key, I also have one for servers. I've disconnected that one for now. So let's do what we want to do with this. Now we've made our USB key. We've copied all our files in, right? It's still copying over. Now what we want to do is we want to use it. So you take it out of your computer and you put it into a computer you need to boot up from. Let's say you just bought a brand new one and you want to build Windows. So let's boot up a computer. So in this case here, I boot up a VM. It's going to run from a USB key. So I'll show you it actually does. So let's plug the USB key in and reboot it. On reboot, sometimes you can hit a key to bypass all the other booters, and it will boot right up to USB as you see it there it's doing. So now this computer is booting up from the USB key we just made, and it's going to give us all the options that we have on it. So I showed you the one I was using. So I have Clonezilla, Windows Server. I have, it's called Boot CD, Ultimate Boot CD. We have a bunch of tools that we have. So if we wanted to boot from Ultimate Boot CD, let's say we have a problem with the computer and we need to get in to fix it, we could use Ultimate Boot CD to go in. We can even use a live version of Ubuntu. We can install VMware if we want. We can install Windows Server 2016. We can do anything we want. So let's say we want to diagnose a computer. So let's boot up Ultimate Boot CD. So what this is going to do now is call up that ISO and boot the computer into that ISO. Just like you plug the CD in a computer or a bootable USB key. So now it's going to break off from the multi-boot into its own software. So let's watch this happen. So now what we're waiting for is this boot CD to boot up. Now it's been a while since I've used this Ultimate Boot CD, so hopefully it's not corrupt. There you go. So there you go. Maybe, okay, so as it says, boot file found for UEFI. So it doesn't like the UEFI BIOS. So let's reboot this again and use a different tool. So UEFI BIOS is a newer type of hardware connection, that BIOS that works with newer hardware. The Ultimate Boot CD version I have is probably not compatible. So what I would normally do is go into the BIOS, turn off UEFI, and boot it that way. So let's use a different tool. So let's say we want to do, let's say we want to clone our drive. So we boot up Clonezilla. So this lets us boot into Clonezilla and will let us clone our hard drive across the network or to another drive outside the OS. You don't have to worry about permissions and everything. So it's going to boot up into this Clonezilla tool. Now so there you go. So you could choose what version. And let's see, let's just go to the base one. And so now it's going to boot into the tool set so we can utilize cloning of disks and system. So once it boots up. And keep in mind, this is running from a USB key, right? So it's not a fast, not flash, it's not a SSD or anything like that. USB key that's just got a lot of files on it. And so now it's booting in. And there you go. Let's just enter. Yep. And now this is what it asks you what you want to do. You want to enter a live server or a client. So you would have this boot up as a server, and then you go to the machine you want to copy and go to the client. So if I choose client, now it's going to boot up and it's going to say what's my network IP and all that. So this lets me clone the system over to another. This lets me go into a computer and actually copy the drive itself over to another PC. So that's one tool. So that's just to show you one tool works. Now, if you want to get out of there, you just reboot and you just hit your escape key to bypass the trying to boot up from a hard drive. There you go. So now we want to say reset system. There you go. So now we want to boot up from the USB again. And let's say this time you want to install Windows. So you have your Windows ISO. Let's say we want to install Windows Server 2016. So now it's going to go out, going to open the ISO and boot up into the installation CD of 2016. Server 2016. Now you can do this with desktop OSs, Linux. You can do with anything you need to do. So now it's going to boot up just like a normal computer would do into the setup files to set up the OS. So this multi-boot Ventoy is a really easy tool to use. As I said, you just basically drop. I'll let that run while I show you the other one. So you basically just drag and drop your OSs onto the disk. That's it. You can create folders if you wish, and it knows how to deal with them. And when you do that, it allows you to put things on. So this one here, let's say we put 20HT, right? So we can also go back and remove the other ones, and we'll boot up from that. So once this boots up, I will shut it down and show you that. So I'm once again showing this test in a VM because I can boot my VMs to the USB. Also because I don't have a camera to put a camera to my computer showing you putting my USB key into it and booting up into the BIOS and so forth. This is just an easier way for a video sense of saying I have plugged in my USB in this computer and now we're booting to it. That's really what the idea here is. So you have to picture what I'm saying physically. You're going to go to your computer or your laptop and plug in this USB key and boot up to be able to reinstall the operating system, or if it's a brand new computer, to set a brand new computer up. So as you see, we're doing a setup of OS 2016. And as we carry this through, it would actually partition a disk. So let's see standard, and I'll show you that. So it's booting up off the USB key. There is a hard drive to this computer, let's say custom, and there's the hard drive, 60 gig drive. So if I say new, it applies the system files as it says it's going to do, and then you say next, and it will then start installing OS. So it's copying all the files in, and then within a few minutes, this will be a running Windows 2016 server. So without going through this, because I don't care about that right now, let's cancel it, and let's disconnect this one. Let's disconnect this one and go to the one we have. So let's disconnect that one. And let's go back to the computer. And let's disconnect this one. Right? It wants to copy that over. So I'll say cancel. Let's see what we have on this because I'm still copying files. So Ventoy H, it currently has Ultimate Boot CD. Now, we already know Ultimate Boot CD causes problems. So let's go here to, let's see if we have another tool. Let's go Linux. Let's copy Linux to the Ventoy. It's nice and fast. And it's just as simple as that. You just drop the ISO you download right from the Linux website. So Ubuntu or Cinnamon or whatever version you want, you can download it and drop it into the folder. Once you drop it into the folder, it's there, and you can now take the USB key to any computer you want, boot up into any environment you need to, without having to carry around multiple CDs or try and disconnect or connect to an ISO file or use multiple USB keys for that matter, because too many become too messy. So with this copied over on the H drive, we now have Ubuntu in 2 seconds, or they say 5. So there you go. So we have that. Now I'm going to disconnect the server from Windows and my other one. So we'll disconnect that. And now the only one we have is H. Now the reason why that's important is because for me to test, I'm going to reboot, but I want to connect to that one, the one I just built. So I'm going to connect to that one. And I'm going to reboot. We're going to reboot to that new key we just used. So if you're following along, you would then take this USB key we just made, right? It's now connected to the VM, so it's gone off from Windows. So that USB key we just made, we would then take it and plug it into a computer and then carry forward and booting it up and picking your OS. So here we are, we're booting to USB. And we should see the Ventoy menu. And we have Ubuntu. So let's click on Ubuntu. And now it will go ahead and try and run the live CD Ubuntu and ask us if we want to install and how we want to install and go forward, just like we just showed you with Windows. So this is a way of making a multi-key, multiple boot. Now I have a Mac version that has all the Mac OSs. I have a Windows Server version, which has all the server version, and I have a USB key with desktop OSs. So I have 3 128 gigabyte USB keys with everything I need for any system I need, anywhere I am, which is how I built all my VMs. So just wanted to show this to show you a tool you can use very easily and quickly. So I'm going to install. I'm going to do basics. Use the entire disk. Done. Done. Continue. Me. Mine. Me. 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 And there you go. Done. So now it's going to actually install and reboot. And we will have a Linux machine in seconds. So now I'm going to try and boot from the CD. Should at least. And so this USB key will now let me boot into Ventoy anytime I need to do any testing, any emergency repairs, anything I need to do. And that's how you use Ventoy. So remember, it's a free tool called Ventoy. It can be used with Linux, Windows, Live CD. It has lots of usage to it. It's also on GitHub, so you can always keep up to date. There's even documentation. So if you need to follow through and how to make a secure boot CD or how to use it with many different OSs, it's a very good tool to use. And it has a lot of, as the download does, takes you to GitHub. It has a lot of updates and a lot of community presence in it. So I recommend this tool to boot. As you see, it goes right in. If you add more OSs to the disk, it will then have more of a tool selection for you. So that's it for another video. Hope you learned something, and like, subscribe, comment if you will, and we'll watch out for the next video. Thank you.